and we're now able to experience it through this installation, which is a real-time installation. I'm going to hand over the proceedings to Glenn and Marina very soon, but there was one other thing I just wanted to mention. We did an event here that was the idea of the staff at the gallery, and we raised over $100,000, well over $100,000 for Ukraine through Marina's generosity in agreeing to sit in the installation with people who had conducted themselves in an auction to sit with her. So that raised well over $100,000 for Ukraine. Thank you. It's actually the idea of two younger members of staff. We're very, very proud that they came up with the idea and everybody supported it so vehemently. And obviously we're all thinking of Ukraine and supporting Ukraine in every way we can at the moment. Marina's just recently returned from the region. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Marina and Glenn. Thank you for attending. And I know that you'll want to give them a huge welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. It's so nice to be here. And again, apologies for having had to reschedule. But what a wonderful moment to spend with Marina and all of you. Not only thinking about The Artist is Present and the remarkable exhibition that occurred at the Museum of Modern Art, but really thinking about Marina's practice writ large. And before we start, we'll talk for about a half hour, 40 minutes. Then we'll open it up to questions from all of you for another 20 minutes or half hour roughly, and we'll end in about an hour. But I want to start where you ended, Sean, which is the Ukraine. Marina, I know that that is a country that means a great deal to you. You did an extraordinarily important work there, I guess now a little over a year ago, the Crystal Wall. Do you want to talk a little bit about that project, which obviously commemorated the Holocaust, but your experiences in Ukraine and some of the work you've just done in the last 17 days on your whirlwind trip?
Yes. So, only 2 months ago, I was asked from Zelensky and to create the project for Babi Yar, which was the Holocaust project. In 1943, Nazis killed 133,000 people and just put in mass grave, mostly the Jewish people, gay, and the gypsies. And this was one of the most horrible, moments in the Second World War, with such a short time, such a huge amount of people. Then they just covered with the earth and created a park. So there was never any memorial or any kind of recognition of that historical fact. Zelensky, who is Jewish, came to be president and create this memorial. And I was one of the artists who win, this competition, this project. So what I was thinking to do there is to create some kind of in a way conceptually the wall of praying in Jerusalem all the way to Ukraine. And this wall I construct from the pure coal, who is from Ukraine itself, and is 14-meter long, 4-meter high, and in this wall have 150 crystals positioned on 3 parts of the body: head, heart, and stomach. And the public was asked to face the wall and touch these 3 points and really go through the process of memory and healing. And the wall is called Wall of Crying. And that wall was constructed and created, the memorial was open. And Zelensky and the president of Germany and president of Israel came and actually paid respect to this wall. Very soon, the Russians, attacked Ukraine, and they destroy already on the second day of the war the tower. That was television tower, only half a mile from the wall. Wall is still untouched. And to me, it's such an incredible thing to do something that, was made for the whole idea that, Holocaust and this all terrible things will never happen again. Only in 2 months later, the whole thing starts again. So if this will survive, that means that we'll be serving 2 functions: memory of the Holocaust in 1943 and Memory of Russians right now. So it's a kind of overwhelming thing. So I was very involved in this whole thing. I knew about the attack of the Ukraine, just maybe 8 hours before, and I was the first artist who gave actually statement.
So memory, that seems like such an important part of this project. And I should say that, of course, the artist is present, but so is the other artist, Marco Anelli, whose incredible photographs are here. Marco, just wave so everybody can say hello and salute you. Because one of the critical components of The Artist is Present was the understanding that there was both the performance at the museum and then the ongoing life of this remarkable performance as it is played out literally over hundreds and thousands of hours through Marco's remarkable images. But memory. I want to talk about how The Artist is Present evolved, because in the end, it was you and a sitter and initially a table. But that's not actually how you originally conceived The Artist is Present. And do you want to talk about how you shifted gears in the project and what your original idea was? Because I'm not sure everyone knows the kind of dramatic change you made.
Do you remember that?
I remember everything.
Can you refresh my memory? I almost forgot.
So now we tell the dirty secrets. So when we invited Marina to do this project, we knew that there was going to be a historical component in our 6th-floor galleries and then a new commission in our atrium. And originally, Marina, you had thought about actually a series of platforms on a wall. And that over time, do you want to speak about that idea, or do you want me to paraphrase for you?
No, oh my God, I remember it was so long ago. I mean, every person on this video is 12 years older, because it's 12 years ago. Anyway, I wanted to make something very different. I want to make some kind of historical kind of retrospective of my life and my work, and create the shells on the main wall in the atrium, and actually start from the top and slowly going down to the audience. And the audience will be in some kind of deck chairs or chaise-longues, almost beds, and with the telescope could observe, the parts of that movement on the wall, and even go closer, that you can see my skin, the color of my eyes and stuff like that, almost like seeing the whole image, but also like a bird watching details. It was very dramatic, very complicated. And then we went in a more simple and simpler way to the basic 2 chairs and a table, and later on no table. Just that's it.
So I'm actually interested in how you imagined, before you actually sat with your first sitter, the project would unfold. Did you have a sense, Marina, of what it was going to be like to be there for 77 days, however many thousands of hours? Did you imagine who the sitters were? What was in your mind when you conceived that?
Total panic. Wait, something's wrong with this microphone, or I'm holding too short, exploding. Okay, total panic. When I got this idea, I know I have to do it. But at the same time, I have the the fear that actually maybe I could not do it. Maybe this is impossible task, because I have no idea, and I didn't want it to try out. Because if I would try out, let's say at home, 2 or 3 days, 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, I would give up immediately. I had to count on the energy of the public to actually support me to do that project. But at the same time, Klaus Biesenbach said to me, well, I think this is New York. Nobody's going to sit on this chair. I mean, who have time to sit there? It will be empty most of the time. But then I was stubborn, and I saw the big chance to show to the general public in America transformative energy of performance art. That if I really go for this concept, never matter if nobody's going to sit there ever, I will be there in that period of time, which I said, and use all my willpower to do it. I did it.
So Klaus Biesenbach, whom I'm sure all of you know, was the curator on this project and worked closely with Marina throughout it. He was probably channeling a comment that he had heard at our board meeting, when we were trying to describe what the artist is present was going to be like. Originally, it wasn't so hard to talk about Marina living for 77 days on these platforms, quietly descending. That was a concept that was relatively easy for people to see as a kind of endurance performance. But when we explained that actually Marina had changed her mind and she was going to be sitting at a chair with a table in front of her and another chair that anyone could sit in, there was the general look of, you must be kidding me. We're going to do this? And Klaus was in the position of having to say, don't worry, it's going to be a huge success. Everybody's going to want to sit with Marina. So he actually had to perform for the board and convince them that this would work. But actually, it did work because they understood that, in effect, it was about you giving something to people. And I always felt that what you created with that space, and in a way the space was almost like an arena with the lights the way they were set up. You know, those of you who were there will remember a square was inscribed on the floor, so there was a zone of engagement. Was that you were giving people yourself. That was your gift to them, that you would sit there and be, in a way, responsive to whatever emotions they had. Did you feel that? Did you feel you were absorbing the emotions of your sitters?
Oh, incredibly. I mean, it was every day was a new chapter of my life, and I never know what's going to happen. And, you know, the people are so different. There's so much loneliness, there's so much pain, there's so much suffering, there's so much joy. Everybody was bringing something else on the table, and I was engaged in this gaze, and I could feel, you know, what they feel. And then the moment they leave, I have to close my eyes and kind of, you know, clean myself, recharge, and go back into the next one. And there's so many times people say to me, but what I've been thinking, what is happening in my head? And my answer is absolutely nothing. If I would think anything, I could not be able to do this. I have to be here and now, and it means in total empty state of mind in order to absorb their state of mind.
You made a decision, and it's very clear as we look at Marco's beautiful images, that you would change color dresses over the course of the performance. Why?
You know, I work very much with the idea of the power of the colors, and I studied this for a long time. So to me, as I sit there for 3 months, the first month is absolutely have to be blue, have to be color who calm me and, you know, put me in some kind of state of tranquility. The second month, it was so difficult. Second month was absolutely the most, you know, the devastating and hard months of my life, and have to be red and have to give me energy. I remember I could not even be touched to have massage because every molecule in my body was in pain. And then the last month was white, when I really felt purified and elevated with this experience. So there was the 3 colors. And for the public who's sitting here, actually is made like a diary. So every square here present 1 day, and every day is 8 hours. So on this side, every single photo that the video I'm there is 8 hours, and this is the side exactly equivalent to the public. Public is changing, I'm never changing. And then we have 1 day when MoMA is closed on Tuesday, and then we have 1 day on Friday when MoMA is 10 hours. And that extra 2 hours was extremely, difficult for me. That extra hours, because break the pattern.
So describe, was it physical pain, mental pain, both? What was, after, I remember watching you leave every evening, and my sense was that you were not just only drained, but your body was aching. Was that correct?
If anybody here want to just sit 3 hours and don't move, see what happens. Even after hour and a half, you know, you start feeling itching, you start feeling that the body can change. And if you really have this, the kind of willpower and say, whatever happened, I'm not going to move, I'm not going to change my position, the pain become unbearable. And they come to the point and you say, if I don't move right now, I'm going to lose consciousness. But when you come to this point and say, okay, so big deal, lose consciousness, then the pain disappears. But you have to go to this point. And that's really, you know, I was 65 when I done this performance. I could never done when I was 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 because I didn't have wisdom. I didn't have the self-discipline. I didn't have mental tools to do that. I had to do it with a 65.
So the key moment for me as I think back on the performance was when the desk between you and your sitters disappeared. Had you planned that all along? Was that an innovation that just came to you? Did you feel it changed your relationship with your sitters when the desk did disappear?
You know, I want to have very conventional situation, very simple. The two chairs and table, that's it. But then on the last months, there came the man in the wheelchair. And to do that, the guards have to move the existing chair and to put the wheelchair in the front of me. And the table was obstructing the view. So I didn't realize, I could not see if this man have legs or doesn't have legs or what kind of physical condition he is. And there was something disturbing me. And I realized, why I have the table? Why I could not have absolutely direct contact with the viewer immediately with not any obstacle between me and him. And then I remember the Tunji, the security, the guard, he said this is very dangerous because you don't have any buffer before audience and you have to have something between. But I absolutely say no, we have to remove the table. And when we removed the table, you know, then I was in the white and everything changed. It was the most deep and extremely extraordinary emotional experience after nothing in between. And you know, there many years ago, in the 20th century, now we're 21st, but in the 20th century, somebody asked me, what is the future of the art? And I said, the future of the art is direct, the dialogue between audience and the artist without any objects in between.
You know, I'm glad you said that because what struck me was that in its original configuration with the table, it felt like a room, but it was very formal. And that once the table disappeared, you and the sitter actually started to merge together, that there was a completely different kind of energy between the two of you. That was really striking. Now, Marina mentioned Tunji, that is Tunji Adeniji, who is our head of security and operations and an absolutely wonderful man, who has one huge regret because in the middle of the performance, after, I don't know, 40 days or 45 days, Tunji was there every morning and every afternoon and would help Marina out of the atrium into her green room. And at one point, I think Marina just said, you know, we should get married. And Tunji said, that's a nice idea, and thought it was a joke. I think he now regrets it. So I want to be very clear that if the proposal is still standing, he may reconsider.
But you know, the one incredible touching thing for this experience in MoMA, that we had 86 people who are the guards in the museum. All of them, you know, during the free time, they will go home, they change the uniform, they will come back, wait in the line and sit with me. This, I don't think that any artists have this kind of attention from the guards of the museum. This was, to me, I remember, very touching.
So we'll open this up to all of you in a moment, but I want to just try and lay the groundwork of at least what happened before asking a question to Marina about what followed. Did you ever imagine that there would be thousands of people a day waiting to sit with you, 10,000 people, 12,000 people? And what did it feel like when you started to recognize that there was no way you could sit with everyone who wanted to sit with you?
You know, to me, escalation, it was very slowly, very gradually. It was really in the beginning, you know, there was some people sitting and there was some people watching. But then, on the end, when the people start sleeping outside of the museum, they start running, they start to, you know, to be in the line, they start, you know, fighting about who was going to sit or not, and start coming somewhere completely different. I only remember that, to me, the moment I stood up from that chair, I was not the same. It was a very transformative performance happened to me. Something really different changed. And I realized that my function as an artist is the public is my tool, the public itself, you know. And this is why, to me, it's really important. Before we open, I just would like to actually show, when I talk the public become the tool, just what happened to me in Kaunas recently.
please.
And this is something that, wait, I have a few things that I'm showing here. Okay. Oh, wait. This is something about the wall, but how big it is, you know, that, and this is the one in, we're talking in Ukraine with the crystals. And this is how the people are functioning and using. It's actually for 45 people in the same time. This is the tower that had just been destroyed at the second day of the war, and then and very close to the wall, but the wall is untouched. But then this is, you know, the landscape, the different. So this is how it looks like in the night. Okay, the Ukraine. Oh wait. This is what I want to show you. So this is just now. I was in Lithuania, in Kaunas, and I was giving the talk. And I never had in my entire life 6,000 people came. And this was actually in Arena Stadium. And I talk about Ukraine, and I talk about our morality, and I talk about people, and I talk about our duties today, what to do with our freedom is taken away, and what's happening in this world. And then I ask, 6,000 people to stand up, and they put their hands on their shoulders and close their eyes. It was 7 minutes to give unconditional love to Ukraine. This was the most emotional moment that I had in the last, 3 weeks in my life. It was something that I understand that actually you can really work with the audience in that kind of energetic level. And this came out of Artist is Present.
That's kind of perfect lead into a question I wanted to ask you about. How did this performance change you? Now, because at this exhibition, so beautifully installed here at Sean Kelly, strikes me as an exhibition before, during, and after. Marina before the great project at MoMA, the project itself, and then more recent work. How do you feel different? Do you think differently about what you do today than how you thought about it in 2010?
Yeah, I just see the entire function of an artist differently now. I see how the performance can have this transformative element, that the moment when the artists get transformed, that kind of energy you can actually radiate to the other people. And I understand that if you actually change yourself, you can change thousands. And that's something that actually functioning. And this is why that Ukraine moment of 6,000 people, if I can do 6,000, maybe a stadium can do too. Can we really go into the kind of change, mental, physical, spiritual, that actually can influence people, can create the sense of being, the sense of the spiritual sense. And that's something that I think one of the functions of artists is to do that. And I am just trying, and I think start from Artist is Present, because I saw response of people. I saw people crying. I saw people emotionally moved. I saw people in such a kind of the deep, the levels of experience. And also these people are stopping me on the street almost daily when I'm just walking on the street, because we have 1,500 people who spend a certain amount of time looking at me in my eyes. And that looking in the eyes says so much more than you have conversation. Because if you, like you and me right now, we're looking at each other, but we are not seeing each other, because you're talking and you're thinking what you're going to ask me. Then you ask me, then I'm thinking what I'm going to answer. So between us is a kind of the curtains of thoughts. But the moment that I don't know you and I never saw you in your life, and I just look at your eyes, that kind of deep understanding is such a strong emotions that you actually seeing person as true as he is. And that's difficult to explain. You have to be experienced. And performance is really about experience, and is emotional, and is immaterial. And this is the most difficult form of art that exists.
And I am sure there are many very important performance artists with us tonight that would agree with that. I was struck when you were saying that about the beginning and the end. If I remember correctly, Ulay might have been one of the very first sitters. and Klaus Biesenbach was almost certainly the last sitter. Do you remember what happened? Do you want to tell the story?
Yes, please tell the story.
Ulay was a bit of a surprise, I think, for you, but who came and sat, and it was actually deeply moving and powerful to see this kind of reunion. And you didn't need to know much about either Marina or Ulay to see both the tension and the emotion in that moment. Now, fast forward 1,500 and however many sitters, I think you had asked, or either you had asked or Klaus had asked to be the last sitter.
No, I asked Klaus. He created the show. I asked him to be the last.
And Marina had in her mind, of course, that this was going to go for a very precise amount of time. Fixed number of days, a fixed number of hours a day, a fixed number of minutes in an hour. And what did Klaus do?
Wow. Klaus sit and he got so uncomfortable. And I pre-recorded, because every minute is so important to me. And I came exactly to sit 10 o'clock. I leave exactly when the museum is closed. And every minute, I really done my work. So I pre-recorded with the guard the text that the museum is closing, and I complete 716 hours and 30 minutes exactly time of sitting. But Klaus, 8 minutes earlier, he stood up, crossed this sacred space, kissed me, and everybody think it was end of the performance. 8 months before, 8 minutes. I want to kill him. And then when the announcement came, nobody could hear it because it was just applause. And nobody noticed except me. It took me a long time to forgive him.
Now, what's important, of course, about this story is that Klaus did a phenomenal job as the curator, and their friendship continues, and Marina saw Klaus recently in Berlin. But I think what I took away from that is that, and how many here sat with Marina? Super. So it's actually a relatively small number. Perhaps you will have felt what I felt, that you think it's going to be very easy to do. You're just going to sit down and look at Marina in the eyes. It's actually really hard to do. And it's not hard to do initially because it's physically uncomfortable. It's hard to do because it's psychologically uncomfortable. That when Marina talks about the space that now exists between us because we're asking each other questions, that's a comfort zone, that's protection. And in a way, what happened when you had to sit with Marina is that protection was peeled away from you. So if you sat for only a minute or two, it didn't happen because you weren't actually ever sufficiently relaxed to give to Marina what she was giving to you. But if you sat for 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour, there were no defenses left. None of you were as raw and open as Marina was raw and open. And I think, and I'm sure this was true for Klaus, if you had anything going on in your mind, if you were worried about paying rent that week, or the article you hadn't finished, or whatever it might be that was disturbing you, it became even worse, right? There was no comfort zone to protect you. You actually started to get more and more nervous. And I'm sure Klaus had in his mind all the things that had to be done at the end of the exhibition. And so he became uncomfortable, as so many people did. It was a very demanding experience on the visitor as much as it was, I think, on Marina. At least that was my sense of it.
He was extremely uncomfortable. I could see him getting red. I could see him being uncomfortable. But it was so, can I tell you something completely funny what happened? So I had, the chair I sit, it was a little tape, crosses exactly to be always in the same place, the legs of the chair. So they will never change because of the light and Mark Connelly taking photographs. And then one day, there's just 4 crosses. These 4 crosses, after I stood up, somebody took it and sell on eBay, each cross for $150. But these are tapes on the wall, tapes on the floor. I was very impressive. So, oh my God, became important. But the one also important thing is for me to say the presence of Mark Connelly in this project, because photographer to be there entire amount of time, like I was sitting, is actually unique. I don't think anybody ever done this.
We salute Marco as always. He had a full head of hair, but it was absolutely jet black. But you know, this is what sitting with you for 77 days did. No, I'm teasing Marco. But what I want to do is open this up to all of you who are here in case you have questions for Marina. Yes, are there microphones that we can circulate? Here. Well, use mine because you don't need to. There's one right there.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm a durational performance artist, so I want to thank you for the legacy that you have left us and are still giving us. But I'm wondering how your experience of the audience, our participants, has changed since the pandemic, since the way our relationship to time and healing has, I think, been transformed, and how it has transformed your future work or performances.
3 questions.
Okay, the first one, if you...
Okay, let's talk about time. Which I realized, it was really very big discovery for me, that if you're in the present, time don't exist. Because we always relate to thinking about the past or planning the future. But we are very rarely in the present. We are very rarely experiencing the moment here and now. But when you experience moment here and now, which is in the performance itself, the time stops. If you are sitting there and your mind is in Honolulu or who knows where, you are lost. If you're sitting there and thinking how much time museum is going to be still open, it will be the most terrible thing to happen in my brain. You have to be in the moment and completely empty-minded to be able to do this work. So time don't exist. My relation to the public changed enormously because, in the performance mostly, you have the public and you have you on the other side performing. But this experience was different. This experience was one-to-one for a long period of time. So perceiving public as a human beings, just separately, changed my entire idea of the people itself. A different way of understanding, and different way how the energy goes between us. And I could feel it, if you sit in front of me after 5 or 6 minutes, I probably know more about you than you know about yourself. You learn these things. I can't explain. It's just really is to do with the practice. And my future work is always changing. Right now, I just finished opera called Seven Deaths of Maria Callas, which if somebody told me 10 years ago to do opera, I think you're crazy, but I'm really interested to doing it. And I also like to do more the very big the events with a very large amount of people, like just this one here. You're looking at it now.
Your question actually is also interesting because I think in 2010, public space was safe space. That we could imagine being with thousands of people in the atrium of the Museum of Modern Art as a safe environment. And I don't just mean personal safety, I mean mental safety, physical safety, emotional safety, medical safety. And one of the things that I'm so conscious of about the pandemic is that public space has also become the space of death. And that's not just the space of random stabbing or shootings in the subway, but it's the space of transmission of illness. And so the whole idea of what public and civic space mean today, I think, is a very different one than it did pre-pandemic. And so this issue between public life and public death is something that we really need to grapple with and unpack. Other questions? There was one directly behind the fellow who asked, I know his hand up went very early.
Hello. I was looking here and seeing that you are wearing red. You used to wear black on that period. Do you remember what happened that day that made you wear red?
This is when I met Ulay.
Oh.
He was a guest of honor, and I felt, and he only come for a few days in New York, and he will never see the second months, and I want to, in his honor, to wear the red. It was pure, decision, emotional decision.
Other questions? Let's come to the front of the room. There's a young person down my right.
interested in the performance or your work more generally, the aspect of physical pain as a bearing witness, or if you see it that way.
I see the pain as a door of secrets, because we are so afraid of physical pain generally. But to me, physical pain is much easier to deal with. Emotional pain is the one is difficult, not physical. But in the same way, you know, in my own life, because I was afraid of physical pain in the beginning, I will stage difficult physical situations in the front of the public. I go through this, you know, emotions, and I go out free of fear of pain. So I wanted to be inspirational to the public. If I can do this, they can do this in their own life to get free of fear of pain, because the fear of pain is something that actually is not productive to anybody.
But Marina, you also did do a boot camp to get yourself ready for this, and to get the other performers who were going to be reenacting earlier works. Do you want to talk about what you were trying to teach them at that boot camp?
Oh, Abramović method and his best. So, Dr. Abramović, if you want to do the boot camp with me, then we have to go to the places who is too hot or too cold, never comfortable. Then you have 5 days no food and no talking, and you do difficult physical exercises in order to, you know, sharpen your perception, willpower, you know, the feeling of how you deal with community, and you know, to do things who really to see how far you can go physically and mentally with your body. It's so necessary if you're a performance artist. You have to have a good physical condition and you have to train. This is no way out, how otherwise you can do anything long durational. And in my case was even more, because I actually changed my pattern of eating. I will eat only in the evening and drink the water during the night and have enough sleep in order to be doing this sitting. Because I never stood up from the chair, I never went to the bathroom, I never eat anything. In order to do that, it was like, you know, going to the kind of space program. You know, if you don't have lunch, you are, you know, the blood sugar go down. So I have to do it by night, change the rhythm, and that to be, you know, can perform during the day. It's simple.
So if Marina ever invites you to spend the weekend with her, be prepared for durational moments. Yes, please, question here.
I just want to say, my name is Imani Uzuri. It's an honor to meet you. Thank you for your legacy and your work. I wanted to find out, what was it like the 79th day after it was over and it was quiet? Did you cry? You know, just what was it like for you?
Oh, God, it was pretty dramatic. On the ending was so difficult. You know, you stand up and then that's it, you know, and everything is gone. And you feel fulfillment, but at the same time you feel enormous emptiness, you know, and you can very easily go into depression. Everything what is very high emotionally, the next days go, whoa, you know. I went to the countryside. I need to be, you know, with the nature. And a part of this, I had lots of physical problems with my back, you know, and my, you know, body and everything that I have to kind of take care of it. It's not easy at all. It's, you know, when you say, oh, but she's just sitting doing nothing. Much, much more difficult than just look like.
Hello. With the atrocity of this war and looking at the unity in the stadium here, and with this extraordinary monument that you've created there, is there an addendum now based on the events of the world today and the tomorrow that we have no idea where that's leading us to, but that might be an adjunct to the piece that you've done?
I have no idea. I don't know what's going to happen. I really hope that this wall will survive, and I really hope that wall will, you know, actually fulfill its function, and the function is the wall of healing, you know. And when I made it the wall, the idea was that this will never happen again in human history, and only 2 months later, everything over start again. So to me is the question, why we are humans doing this, what we are doing over and over again. Why is this? And I always wanted to quote His Holiness Dalai Lama, because he really kind of pointed to the key of our problem. He said, if you learn to forgive, you can stop killing. But the humans to learn to forgive, this is something we see all these centuries we didn't learn yet. And it's really about changing ourselves. It's not about somebody else is going to do something for you. It's each of us have to see the change. And that change can create collective consciousness and shift in collective consciousness. Before this, nothing will happen.
Hi. I haven't had the privilege of seeing a lot of your work in person, but I read your book and it was extremely inspiring. I have kind of a hybrid question, but in your book you talk about this person, Lindsay, that's gonna carry on your legacy. I'm just curious if y'all are still working together and what you would like to see or have as your legacy once you're gone.
I formed the MAI, which is Marina Abramović Institute, and this institute basically it's really to preserve the legacy of performance art, which is really important to me because I spent 50 years of doing it, and then also a legacy of long durational performance art and working with young artists and creating their own legacy, their own work. So we work with artists around the world. And doing the different projects in different countries, and this is like to continue. And a part of this is not a question, but I have to just say something. I done this 3 months work in MoMA, and I done work in the Great Wall of China 3 months, and then all my projects was the longest 3 months. But here in the audience, there is somebody that I call master, because I don't see myself master, but I see this man master. And this is Te Ching, right there. Te Ching, can you stand? So, for people who doesn't know Te Ching, I just wanted to say that this man made the 5 performances in his life, and each performance is 1 year. That's incredible. I just want to describe one performance. This is before COVID, before anything. We are talking in the 80s. He created a cage in his own living room. In this cage, it was a bed. It was a tub for get the water, and just one bucket. And he will have one friend who will come to him to give him one meal per day, to empty the bucket because he will pee and whatever, go to the bathroom, and he could drink water from the tap. He never read, he doesn't write, he didn't talk. 1 year. We're talking the voluntary prison of 1 year. And then when I ask him, but how you did it? And he say, when I sit on the left side of the bed, this is my bedroom. When I sit in the middle, this is my living room. When I sit on the right side of the bed, is my garden. Easy. Te Ching, you're great, by the way.
Those performances are not only extraordinary, but legendary. So we're so happy you are here tonight, Te Ching. Let's take some questions from the back of the room, if there are any. Yes, please, all the way back. We'll get you a microphone.
Marina, is it we're on? Okay, so I've been following you forever and ever, and you are my idol. I'm a performance artist. My name is Crackhead Barney and Friends. I want to know, how do I get as famous and successful as you? That's what I want. I want to know, how do I get as famous and successful as you? I want to have my own institute. I want to have my own installation at MoMA. I want everything. I want it all.
Wow. Okay. If somebody come as my student and say to me, I want to be famous, rich, and successful, I will send him home immediately. Because this is not the aim of art. This is side effect of lots of work. That's it.
I'm reminded of the old joke. A performer, musician asked, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer was practice, practice, practice. Other questions from the back of the room? Yes.
Hello, Marina. I was just curious to someone who asked how you deal with physical pain, but you said it was very hard to deal with emotional pain. And I was curious how you deal with emotional pain.
Like everybody else, cry, cry, and cry. I don't go to psychoanalyst. I don't take the drugs. I don't even drink. Oh my God! But I eat chocolate. Okay. And honestly, it takes time, and really you can't fight it. You can't do anything. You know, when especially emotional pain mostly come from love. And when I had a really serious broken heart, and I could not walk, I could not sleep, I could not eat, I was sick. And it took me a long, long time to get out of it. And to get out of it, I just made the opera called Seven Deaths of Maria Callas, which actually every woman dying for love. In every opera, women die for love. In strangulation, the heart attack, tuberculosis, burning, whatever. So all the Traviata, Norma, Carmen, Lucia Lammermoor, Tosca, all of them. So I made the opera, and then when I finished the opera, I was free. My work, I always find through the work to actually process my emotional pain.
But I think it's important to underscore, if you let me, Marina, that Marina projects a facade or a veneer of strength, emotional strength. You see that across all of these images. But as I got to know her better and better before the performance, during the performance, and afterwards, I think what is less evident, but at the center of the work, is that Marina is also an extraordinarily vulnerable person. She works through those vulnerabilities, she turns them into work, but I don't think one should ever assume that the stability, the poise that you see here tonight is all of Marina. There's a completely different side, and that vulnerability is what lets her understand how to engage different communities and different people. At least that's how I read it.
I actually talk about 3 Marinas, and I was so ashamed of some of them, and I was trying to hide them, but then I realized that actually by showing vulnerability to my public, I can make much better contact with my public, because we are all the same. We all have the vulnerable sides, the strength sides, the stuff that we are ashamed of, and exposing things that I'm ashamed of in the front of my public actually make me human, and that's so important. So I'm doing this all the time. So we have 3 Marina, one spiritual, who believe in every mumbo jumbo you can imagine. Another one is warrior who has no obstacle. I go for it, courage all the way. And then real bullshit one that really love lots of things that are not great to tell you.
Thank you. I'd like to echo what someone else said about your book. It was a real gift to read it. It's one of my favorite reads, so thank you for sharing that with us. Something I notice in your work when I watch it is I notice a dichotomy, and you do talk about groundedness, but I also notice a transcendence. And perhaps there's transcendence through feeling some physical pain, but I wanted to ask you, how large of a role does transcendence from the body play in your work?
That's right. Yeah, but actually, when you really create obstacles and you go through them and you go to other side, you transcendent. I'm now making some new work actually, who is going to be shown in September in the Museum of Oxford Art in England, and there are 2 actually the objects, and one is the gate and one is called portal. And the gate is something that you go through, and portal is something that you transcendent. And this transcendent really interests me very much, how you go from one state of mind into another state. and how can be done that, you know, what are the rules and what physical effort you have to make to do that. But basically is mostly spiritual.
Right to you, yes.
Okay. Hi. Hi, Marina. I was just wondering, after you did Rhythm Zero, and you saw kind of the darker side of humanity, when you were presenting yourself as an object and not a person, how did you, or why did you decide to continue kind of exploring the good side of people, and why didn't you stop, and why didn't you get, you know, disappointed with humanity?
But you know, this is something that you learn. It took me 50 years, you know, it doesn't come immediately. Like when I done my early performance when I was 23 years old, Rhythm Zero, which I put on the table of different objects for the pleasure, but also to hurt me, including pistol with the bullet in that time, and the knives and the razors and whatever. And I asked public they can do anything on me, and I take all responsibility for 6 hours, and the public use these objects, and they really, you know, almost kill me. It was very dangerous to what I done that time. And then 20 or 30 years later, I done Artist is Present, where I actually only reduce everything on 2 chairs and the table, and a very clear restrictions. You can sit opposite, you can't touch me, you can't talk to me, just look at me. And this is how I learn in all this process, how you can actually take the worst of people and how you can live this people's spirit. It took me all these years to learn that. In this performance is about lifting human spirit.
Thank you.
That question brought to mind, we'll come to some questions in the back of the room, but it also brought to mind this sense of cleansing that Balkan Baroque does, right? That you can deal with some of the most horrible things that we as humans have ever created and find a way to turn that into a kind of cleansing. At least that's, I mean, it was a very emotionally, physically, sensory, horrible experience. I mean, you walked in and your body, but what you were doing was cleansing for the benefit of everyone else. At least that's how I felt it.
This is such important to me, this, if you look this Balkan Baroque, it was done in that time for the Balkan War. But if you look this image, I wanted to always create something with this, have this transcendence inside the image that you can use for Syria, you can use for Ukraine, you can use any war, anytime, anywhere. And that's which is important when artists make the work of art. It's not just about one event, it's about many events that have the same message. And you can never clean the blood from your hands.
Hi, I was just thinking when you said the performance was effective, and I wanted to ask, what were those changes that you saw in yourself, like after the performance, if you were like, I don't know, more disciplined, or you found like more power of will in yourself, or anything that you saw change in you, and how did you deal with observing those new features fade away, or like how permanent were those changes?
You know, what I'm going to say now sounds maybe strange because we are talking about art, but what happened to me, it was feeling of unconditional love for every human being sitting in the front of me. That unconditional love I never felt before in my life in that way. It's very easy to feel love to your family, your children, your mother, your father, your lover, your husband. But this was different type of love. This was love regardless if these people were, you know, giving me good energy, bad energy, if whatever they come from, any, you know, they look, the social groups, the young, the old, that didn't matter at all. It was opening of heart. That was incredible change to me, that I understood that unconditional love and power of unconditional love.
Thank you so much for coming here and talking with us today. You know, I have a question. Maybe it's not a correct question because I guess all your works are part of you and you continue working. But like on the personal level, what is the most important project for you? Or what is the most memorable from what you've done or what you're doing at the moment?
You know, I'm not nostalgic and I don't like to look in the past. Whatever I've done it. The project was important at the time when I've been doing them. And I think that I still didn't make my most important project. I just don't think that way. I just think that I still have so much to do. So who knows going to be most important, but it's not there yet.
Marina's answer to that, I think, is what most artists I know would answer. That you have to believe that your best work is in front of you, not behind you, and you have to somehow, no matter what you have done, recognize it and then move on and hope that it has led you to some place that you hadn't anticipated before you began. Because I think otherwise you spend all your time looking backwards and going, if only I could have done it like that again. And you know, to be fair, some of these early performances were life-threatening. So so we're grateful that she hasn't reprised those.
Yes, but now we come to this point of teaching again. You see, if an artist wanted to do the project, he wanted to put everything in that new project, but he never could do that. So there's always new ideas, next project. But if you do something that you actually go through the full transformation and you don't need to do anything anymore, then means that you really done everything in your work that make this transformation possible. So when I asked teaching after all his work, you know, these 5 years incredible performances, what you doing now? He gave me the answer who make me sure that he actually went through this transformation. He said something that I will never forget. He said, now I'm doing life.
Hello, Marina and Glenn. My question is, what do you think is the greatest gift that artists can give other gifts in their work and in their lives?
Artists can give to other artists, or yes, what is the greatest gift that an artist can give to other artists?
I think that older artists have to be generous to young generation and have to give advices and have to really be accessible. That's very important. I didn't have this in my life, but I've been teaching more than 30 years around, and I really work with young artists, and I give them my experience. They give me sense of time I'm living in, but my public is extremely young public, just because of that I really love to give them what I went through, so they don't need to repeat same mistakes.
Let's take one more question. Is there a question over here?
Hi, dobroveče. I know that you're Serbian, and obviously I'm Serbian, and you know you're such a big star in Serbia, and everybody loves and adores you.
Not true.
Oh, it is true.
I haven't talked to her brother.
I just know in general everyone admires your work, and thank you for all you've done. I was just wondering, do you ever think about going back to Serbia after all these years being sort of away and traveling and exposed to so many different things? Do you think about going back to Serbia and sort of living there permanently?
No.
But wait, your question is
you know, anyway, in my relation to Serbia, it's complicated. First of all, I left when it was Yugoslavia. It was one country with the 6 republics. Now we have, 6 countries. So I truly always believe I'm Yugoslav, but they always put me into Montenegro, Serbia, whatever. But I felt that this was my country. It was a country where everything was in very harmony, which is not anymore. And, it took me 47 years that actually the Serbs invite me to have a show in Museum of Modern Art. After 47 years, after I've been showing every museum in the world, finally I got there. And then it was not just you know, the road with roses. There was my generation really hate me. I mean, honestly, one of the articles in newspapers say how she can sit on the chair, do nothing, and have all this attention. I mean, you know, so what I can do about that? But young generation is different. Young generation really understand my work and support me. But I don't see going back. I see the entire planet as my studio. I'm everywhere. You know, I travel. And also my work is me. I have to move. I don't see point being in one place.
I want to thank all of you for being with us tonight. It is always a treat to hear Marina speak, to have an opportunity to talk to her, to understand the depth and complexity of her work. To Sean and the entire staff at the gallery, what a beautiful exhibition. Thank you so much for doing what you do. To Tae Ching, it's, I think, an incredible honor for Marina that you're here tonight. Thank you all.